As the Republican National Convention comes to a close, all eyes are now on Chicago's Democratic National Convention.
It kicks off in just a few weeks amid rumors that the top of the ticket may be changing. Former Fox 32 political analyst Mike Flannery joins us now. And Mike, first, we hope you are enjoying retirement.
Well, I am. This is about the time I usually get up and tune in to watch you guys. So delighted to be here.
Thank you. Okay, let's dive right in here. How likely is it that President Biden may be out this weekend?
Well, if those reports are to be believed, maybe this weekend, maybe a bit later. But if the reports are to be believed, the former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other Democratic Party heavyweights are urging the president to accept the reality of the voter opinion surveys that he's likely to lose to Donald Trump and perhaps cause Democrats to lose the House and the Senate as well.
Now, this election could possibly hinge on independent voters and what they're going to do in November. Do you think that former President Trump may have swayed any of them last night with his speech?
Well, you know, as you guys noted a few minutes ago, it was at 92 minutes long, it was the longest speech by a party nominee ever. I would say 92 minutes was about 62 minutes too long. And in addition, look, at the beginning of the speech, you could have heard a pin drop. It appeared in that Milwaukee convention hall. As the former president recounted the assassination attempt, the attempt to kill him. But then after that, from my perspective at least, and I suspect from the perspective of a lot of people watching at home, the speech went way downhill. You know, I'm not sure what that riff about the late, great Hannibal Lecter of Silence of the Lambs was about. And there were a lot of detours that were apparently not scripted. The former president, Brian and Natalie, would have been better served, I think, if he had stuck to the script, which is what his aides were hoping he would do.
Okay, so you rounded that up for us, Mike. Thank you. At this point, though, what should we expect at the DNC, or are all bets off?
Well, I think that, look, shades of 1968. I was in high school and watching on TV during the 1968 Chicago Democratic National Convention. That was a presidential election year, also marked by huge divisions in American society over war. There were assassinations. You know, the echoes seem to grow by the week, perhaps. We're going to see, unlike this Republican convention, which was a heck of a show, they projected a unified party, which I think is the reality for Republicans. The Democrats who arrive in Chicago next month are going to be a divided group, whether President Biden is seeking renomination or not. You know, we're going to see, there were protesters in Milwaukee outside the hall, but we didn't see much about them. And I suspect not a single delegate joined them. Here in Chicago, we're going to have delegates going out and joining the protesters. There's going to be tens of thousands of them. If you go online, you'll see some of the groups that are organizing these things, you know, vow to be as great as 1968. In their protests, you know, which led to violence on the street, running street fights between protesters and the police. The Democrats are going to have a lot more trouble projecting the kind of unity we saw the Republicans deliver this week.
And speaking of that unity, Mike, if they do make a change at the top of that ticket, who do you think that the Democrats will decide on to actually be on the ticket in November?
Look, Brian, I don't. It's either Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee or Kamala Harris. I don't think there's time for the party to unite, again, that word, to unite around anybody else. I don't think you can shunt aside the first African-American female vice president and expect in the matter of a few days or a few weeks, Democrats across the board to accept it. Look, should President Biden step down, the vice presidential candidate who might run with Kamala Harris will be the focus. I think it's either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket.
Mike Flannery, thanks for your retirement time this morning. We appreciate you, and we miss you here at Fox 32.
I miss you guys. We'll have to get together and have a drink.
We would love
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
Thank you.